Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
All right, Melissa, I have got some quotes for you. I did my research this morning.
Yay.
And I got my notebook and I got quotes. Because you sent me a text that I thought was really interesting, and it made me start thinking about the idea of loyalty. And then I was like, there's a bunch of little quotes around loyalty that I think we should unpack. And I don't think we've ever done like a conversation about loyalty specifically. So
I don't know.
So here we go.
The list of our pods are getting too long for me to look back. Okay, go ahead.
Nothing is more noble, nothing more venerable than loyalty. That sounds impressive.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, it does.
So loyalty is a virtue that cannot be bought, and it must be earned. An ounce of loyalty is worth a pound of cleverness. That must have been from over the pond.
Oh.
Well, I think cleverness is smartness, right? Like you'd rather have someone who is loyal than maybe overly clever.
The new shiny moment idea. Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Then there's a couple others that go a little bit the other way that I think is interesting. You've heard loyal to a fault, right?
Yep.
So like when does loyalty actually become a little bit of a liability?
Oh, see, this is exactly why I was suggesting this topic.
And then this one is like a little bit more punchy. Don't let your loyalty become slavery. Right?
Oh. Whoa. I've never heard that before.
Well, I hadn't heard that one before either, so thank you, Internet, for random quotes. But I don't think that one's that was like a random angry Internet person. But
no.
But the idea, it is very interesting that loyalty in so many contexts is a really great virtue to have. Everybody wants someone in their life who is loyal. I think a lot of people seek to be loyal to others. But there is a little...
To show their love.
Yep. But there is a point. There's an edge there that can be taken advantage of if you are maybe overly loyal, or the person you are loyal to doesn't have the same maybe relationship expectations as you.
Yes. Oh, that's a really good way to say that. Yeah. I remember... just on that frame, I remember I had an employee that was with me for a long time, and I also had a recruiter that I worked with a lot. And behind my back, the employee decided that they were going to leave, and the recruiter found them a job. And I had worked with the recruiter very tightly on a number of projects. We'd traded projects back and forth over the years. And the saddest part is that I would have completely been great with that employee going because they were ready. They had kind of outgrown the role. They were ready for something else. But I was so shocked by that play because it was such a lack of loyalty. And I remember saying, because I confronted the recruiter. I didn't confront the employee. I confronted the recruiter. And they said, well, it's just my job.
Yeah.
It's just my job. And I said, well, yes, and I had different expectations of our relationship than you did. I saw that I saw our relationship was different. And that was the end. That was the end of the relationship. That was the end of the conversation. And then 6 months later, it was Christmas time, and I got a huge, beautiful bouquet from this person, and it just said, I'm sorry.
Well, so, at least they apologized.
I think
that was...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it isn't about like collecting stamps and harboring ill will, but it really is this whole idea of loyalty. And when is loyalty one of our greatest strengths? And just like anything else, if it's overused, when does it become a big liability? Because in my life, that's happened a number of times.
I think it's probably happened to all of us to some degree.
Yeah.
So
it's funny because go ahead.
The thing that I think about, like, there's loyalty to lots of different, like, constituents, to a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
So there's certainly loyalty to, I mean, I think loyalty is mostly to people, but there's loyalty to, like, maybe your country, right? There's loyalty to maybe an organization. Yeah. There might be loyalty to your favorite horrible sports team. Loyalty to beliefs or a belief system, right? I don't know that you would be loyal to an object. Like, I'm pretty loyal to this particular coffee cup that I'm holding that I bring around absolutely everywhere with me. It has yet to betray me.
I think that's just a habit. That's just a habit.
Every once in a while it betrays me because if I fill it too full, it gets like a little suction thing, and then it spills coffee all over me.
Oh my God.
Our pets, I know that your loyal companions are always sitting right behind you.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. Are under my desk. Yeah.
So we can be
agreed.
There's loyal relationships happening in many facets of our lives. And the interesting thing, and I think the one of the sources of really great stories that we like to watch and hear about are when there's dual loyalties, and we're going to watch our favorite character pick which loyalty that they're actually going to be loyal to.
Yes. Ooh, that one felt like you had a personal example with that one.
Well,
it's true.
Loyalty towards two people. You might have like two friends that want to kind of go different directions, and you're sitting in the middle, and you're like, well, which one
how about
am I going to go
Have you been
with?
friends with anybody? Have you ever been friends with a family that's divorced? That's exactly what happens.
Yeah. Are you picking
lots of split
him or her in the divorce? Like, who gets the friends in the divorce almost?
Yeah. And then how do you show that loyalty? And does that ever stop? Like, how do your behaviors curb or change because of that decision for loyalty? And how long does that go?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really sticky conversation because I think you're right. Most of the time we talk about loyalty as this, exactly as you said, it's a virtue, right? We talk about it as a virtue, and we talk about it like we're really showing our true colors if we're loyal. If we can be loyal to someone, that's like the greatest form of love, showing the greatest form of love for someone. But what happens when you see that person going off the rails, or you need to have a more honest conversation with that person, or you see that person going down a path that's not great? And while you don't want to take responsibility for that person, do you have, when do you topple over on the negative side of loyalty? And I think that happens a lot.
I think what you're talking about is like scope of loyalty. Like it's probably a nerdy way to phrase it. You could be loyal on some points and kind of not on others. Yeah. Like, here's an easy example would be like your job. Like, a loyal employee maybe shows up in time and does what's asked of them. That's the scope of their loyalty, right? If you ask them to go steal something or commit a crime or go do something.
Or act outside of something that they value.
Yeah, right. Like that's outside the scope of loyalty for my job, right?
Yeah.
I don't think in a lot of friend or spousal relationships, we would ever talk about what the scope of loyalty is. Until it breaks.
So you're saying
until you're pushed so far,
until it
but it's
breaks.
never a conversation. It's not like, you know what, I'm actually going to be loyal to you until you cross some line and then I'm out. No one has that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. We don't think about it like that.
Right.
We don't talk about it like that, and we don't think about it like that. But that is very true. And I think in coaching, I always talk about when you're making modifications to behaviors, it's easier to practice on people that aren't as close to you. So you will do this, with strangers. You can act differently with people even at work because you may know them, but they don't have the same level of relationship with you as your family member, for example, or your spouse or your child. So I think it is easier to have a fence around what's good and not good in loyalty, or what you deem as good and not good in loyalty.
Yeah.
That to me, you're exactly right. But then when you get home, it's a totally different experience. And how do we know when we're going teetering on the edge of that?
I've talked about it before, but my old business partner relationship, that really tested my loyalty to my business partner. Because we had been partners for over 10 years. What was it, maybe was it 10 years? 20 years? I don't know. The years blend together.
Longer
a long
than 10
time.
years.
Yeah, longer than 10 years. A long time. And I
Decades.
felt very loyal to him. And we would actually kind of joke like that we'd been married longer than we were to our wives. Because we kind of were, right? We started that business when we were 19. We've been through a lot of growing up together. And I felt very loyal. But when that relationship started really breaking down, I started really feeling like I was being taken advantage of, right? Like, I'm here, my perspective through JJ's lens is like, I'm here, I'm running the day to day, I'm walking through all the crap every single day, dealing with, all of the drama that he's creating. And that persisted for a very long time, for years, until it was just like the breaking point for me. Like, I just could not stretch that loyalty anymore. And it broke. Yeah.
Yes. And that's exactly what I was referring to when there's somebody like in that situation. At the time he was dealing with some mental health issues, right? That were very pervasive and very long, they and exhausting. And the love that you had for him, it was just easier for a really long time to look the other way, and that was a show of solidarity to support him. And I mean, even in coaching, there are some of my coaching clients that I've had for years, and it's sort of the same thing, where you can, not the exact same, but the same relational thing where you can see a pattern that has emerged, and it would just be easier, to call it out differently, without feeling really guilty about that, or like you have lost favor with yourself because you're going in a different direction that seems very against being loyal.
Yeah. So
I don't know. That was a lot of words. I don't know if that made sense. JJ told me before we started recording this morning that I was being too verbose. I like that word, even verbose. I thought that was such a compliment. I don't know if you meant it that way, though.
You wrap cotton around the rock. I just wrap fancy words around the rock.
You just wrap a little tinfoil around the rock so it's shiny when it's flying through the air.
Well, like just in that vein, this idea that like you can be, you can maybe be taken advantage of, or you can take advantage of other people's loyalty.
Yes.
One thing that maybe because of that, or I don't know why, but like at work, I am very, very conscious of our employees' loyalty to our business. And just like your story, like I'm very proud when we get to like coach up and out employees. But I try to talk about that in a, like, hey, like our goal is to get you from like entry level person and to at someday quit. Now, an employee will be like, why would you want me to quit? Well, because you can't be here forever. We're not a big enough company, and you have great things to do in the world with your skills. And we're just happy to be a little part of it. Employees, though, almost never can see it that way. They always think like they get in this position where they know that they need to leave, but then they've got this loyalty
and
that's keeping them there for a bit too long. And I'd rather them say
terrible,
and then they feel crappy. And then it becomes all sorts of
guilty.
And then sometimes what happens? They feel guilty. They have this like internal conflict about being loyal, but knowing that they need to like continue to grow. And that actually really harms their performance at work, to the point where sometimes they get fired. Instead of having an honest conversation of, I think I need to move on.
Right. Yeah. Isn't it so much easier to talk about a work example because it's just so obvious, and we don't have the same depth of relation with those individuals. You can see it easier. It's more, you can observe it. You can see the start to finish of it. You can see that loyalty is coming in a way that's not helpful. They start to feel bad, or they might even act out because they're angry because they feel tied down. And we do the exact same things in our personal relationships too. That's the thing. And that's the piece that I sort of had this realization about. I've been kind of having these realizations about this in the last several months. There's been a couple of relationships in my life where it has been necessary for me to stop the relationships because I was being really, really loyal and feeling very out of my comfort zone. Out of my comfort zone. I was being loyal to somebody who was exhibiting characteristics that I didn't understand or recognize, decision making that I did not agree with at all, and it got more and more pervasive. But I felt terribly guilty because I felt like I wasn't being loyal. But what ended up happening is I wasn't loyal to me because I was staying there so long. So I think I hit this tipping point, where it was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this anymore. It feels terrible.
Yeah, it's changing a relationship loyalty is like the second arrow. It's like you already don't feel good about the relationship, and so you've got that going on, but then you feel bad a second badness about breaking your loyalty.
Yeah, because you can name it almost.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So it's like a double whammy when you're in that situation.
That's exactly right. And I guess the thing is this, too, is, when you think about because we're only thinking about this from our own lens and having our own experiences, watching this and feeling it and, having all these emotions about it. What about the other person? Like, do you think that when it gets to be right at this stage of where it's just not really working, do you think that it's better for the other person if you're honest as opposed to loyal? Like, because this is the thing. I feel like when we're on this, and I think we can live in this space for a really long time of teetering on, am I honest or am I loyal? Am I honest or am I loyal? Because I can't be both. I cannot be both. And which do you think that I chose for long periods of time?
Loyal, just like the rest of us.
I chose loyal.
Everyone picks loyal.
Yeah, I chose loyal. Yeah, and is that serving the other person?
Probably not.
Because I think the whole thing, the whole reason that I chose that is because I felt it was serving the other person because it wasn't rocking the boat. Don't rock the boat. Don't make any changes because that would be painful. That would hurt. But is that really the best for that other side either? It's an interesting thing to think about.
Now I'm trying to think. Now you got me thinking, like, okay, has someone have I felt that someone was loyal to me and then they've, I don't know, gone away, like, or not in my life anymore, and did they choose to do that? Like, did I, I'm trying to think of the opposite.
Yeah. Right. I don't
maybe that's just how sometimes it works. It's just that maybe someone's in your life, they seem very loyal, they're not getting what they need, and they just fade out of your life.
Yeah. But then there's a lot of scenarios too, like you've been very fortunate to not come from a divorced family. I have had the fortune of coming from a divorced family, actually many divorced family situations in my life.
Way to frame
and
that
I think
one.
that's like one. Well, but think about it this way: as a child, a parent leaves because that parent can no longer live with the other parent. But that's where a lot of the disconnection happens, and feeling there's that person isn't being loyal to me, and really the child probably has very little to do with all of that, right? So it is just a really interesting place to think about from that perspective. Is sometimes. But in the end, even in divorce situations, it's for the best. It's a relationship that was not working and was causing a great deal of pain. And yet you're right that loyalty is the second arrow. That's such an interesting way to say that. And I haven't experienced that I can think of that had any great meaning for me, relationships that have chosen to leave me. I mean, boyfriend, girlfriend, that sort of situation, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like this is kind of a tangly place to live. If you're in a relationship with someone where you are on the precipice of choosing, do I stay honest?
Yeah.
Or do I stay loyal?
Yep. That is a good question.
It's
the thing that's actually easier to stay loyal to is to yourself. And really, when I say loyal to yourself, it's more
You're
around
right.
like, what's good for you, what serves you, what because I think a lot of times we'll stay loyal in spite of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we'll put the other person, if we're a very loyal person, we often put the other person ahead of ourselves, which is actually kind of being disloyal to ourselves.
Right.
And it's actually
Yeah.
also easy to be more loyal to our own like core values often. So a way I think you can approach someone you're in a relationship that doesn't serve you anymore, maybe lean back on what really are your core values. And it's probably the reason you probably want to change is because they don't have the same core values as you do. And a way to confront that, if you're going to be so bold to do so, might be around saying, hey, like, you're super into whatever, this is what I believe.
Yeah.
And we're just in two different places, and that's okay. But I'm going to go this way. You can go that way.
Yeah. And you know what else? Not only is it okay, but I actually think that if we don't do that and we really recognize that there's a pull for us, like we just feel bad when we hang up the phone or after we've spent time with that person or whatever, I also think that we're putting extreme pressure on that other person too.
Yep.
Because we're wanting them, when we stay in that period, we're wanting them to be different.
Yeah.
And kind of,
yeah. I did pull this one little list. This like Eastern, this Eastern philosophy of the meaning of loyal, from like an Eastern philosophy means righteousness, courage, benevolence, respect, sincerity, and honor. So those are six very powerful words, but the one that I thought was actually really interesting in there was courage, because I think it takes a lot of courage. It sometimes takes courage to be loyal because you're in a position that you maybe you got to choose. But I think the choice part is where the courage comes in, because you can choose to be or not to be, and right there it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, and the two words that totally hopped off the page for me that you just said were benevolence and respect. Because think about it like this: I think a lot of times if something needs to stop, if a relationship needs to stop, or if our loyalties are no longer serving either of us, it's a natural breaking point. And what do we usually want to do with breaking points? We usually want to make them have some sort of energy or heat behind them so it's, quote, easier. It's very rarely that with respect and benevolence, we release someone from our circle.
Actually,
very rarely do we just say, what's best for you, and I'm going to just honor this whole thing. We don't do that usually.
Yeah, that respect piece, that probably is why it hurts when someone is disloyal, because there is this underlying subtext that you don't respect me. You're disloyal because you don't respect me.
Yeah. It's an interesting
I'll
topic.
Reflect on it.
Yeah, I think that loyalty is a virtue, but maybe what we need to add is and for me too. You know, it's as simple as exactly what you were just saying. It's like, I think being loyal to self is our number one responsibility, and it's not being a narcissist. You know, it's taking care of yourself first so that your vending machine stays full, so that when people come and want to get candy bars out, you've got lots in there.
Oh, I'm putting that quote on the internet. So your vending machine is full, Melissa Albers.
Exactly.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.